In Lithuania, they tell a story about the sea that is not a love story and not a war story and not the kind of story where anyone learns a lesson and goes home wiser. It is a story about a promise made on wet sand and about what happens when land people break a promise that the water still remembers. Her name was Egle. She was the youngest daughter in a house of many daughters, and in that country, the work of the household did not end at the doorstep. On certain days, the linen had to be carried down to the shore and washed in the cold Baltic water while the gulls argued over the harbor. It was women's work, and it was also the work that brought the sea close enough to speak. This is the story of the girl who said yes when her sisters had said no, and of the king under the waves, and of the brothers who thought an axe could settle what a promise had opened. The eldest sisters went first, each in her turn with the linen bundled in their arms and the wind off the water pulling at their braids. On the sand, a serpent waited, coiled inside a sleeve of woven silver cloth, and it asked each sister the same question in a voice that was not loud and not human. Would she come away and be the bride of the king beneath the waves? The eldest said no. The next said no. The next said no again, and each time the serpent lay still on the sand and let them wash their linen and carry it home without harm. When Egle's turn came, she was 16 and very quiet, with pale Baltic skin that burned in the summer sun and long fair hair she wore in a single thick braid down her back. She knelt at the water's edge and began to work the linen against the stones. The silver sleeve lay beside her on the sand. The serpent asked her. She looked at the cold green water and at the coil of scales inside the cloth, and she thought of her sisters' faces when they came home and said nothing about what they had seen. She thought of the house where she was always last for everything except the hardest work. And she said yes. The serpent slipped back into the sea. The linen was clean. Egle carried it home and did not tell anyone what she had promised until the sea itself began to keep the promise for her. The household was afraid. Word had spread of what the older daughters would not say aloud. They tried to trick the sea. A bar of hot iron was hidden inside the silver sleeve, and Egle was told to leave it on the sand as before. In the morning, the sleeve was torn and scorched and empty, and there were marks in the wet sand that were not made by any human foot. Then he came as a man. They called him Zilvinas in the stories. A tall, pale young man with dark hair and eyes the color of deep water, dressed in a long coat of dark green scales that read as cloth until the light struck it. He did not rage at the iron. He stood in the yard and asked for Egle by name, and he asked quietly, and he waited. She went with him down to the shore at dusk. The water opened. There was a road beneath the waves and a palace of amber halls and woven kelp, and a court that breathed as if the whole building were one slow lung. Egle was crowned queen of that country. She bore sons who would become the names of groves, and daughters who would become the names of trees. For 9 years, she did not walk on her father's land. After 9 years, the brothers came down to the shore with gifts wrapped in waxed cloth and iron shirts they had hammered themselves, shirt after shirt, nail by nail, because they had been told that iron would burn a serpent's skin. They called for their sister. They called until the waves flattened in a ring and the road under the water showed itself again. Egle came up from the palace with her children at her skirts. She was a queen now, dressed in sea green silk with a thin circlet of amber on her brow, and her fair hair was braided with small shells. She wept when she saw her brothers' faces. She had not known how much she had missed the roughness of their hands. Zilvinas received them as a host should. He said they might stay 3 days and eat at his table. He said he would meet them on the 3rd morning on the shore in his own true shape, so they would know what their sister had married. Egle begged them to put away the iron. They smiled and said nothing. They slept in amber rooms and counted the hours until morning. On the 3rd morning, the brothers walked down to the sand before the sun was fully up. The water lay flat and gray. Zilvinas came out of it as a serpent the length of a boat, his scales black-green and wet. His head lifted once above the foam so that Egle, watching from the palace road, could see the same dark eyes she had loved in the man. The eldest brother raised the axe. The second held the iron shirt open like a shield. The blade fell twice, and the serpent's blood ran into the Baltic without a sound the waves could drown. Egle came up from the water road, screaming. Her brothers took her by the arms and told her she was saved. They told her she would live again in their father's house and eat bread and forget the palace of amber. They did not understand that she was not screaming because she had been rescued. She was screaming because the promise was broken and the sea was listening. They brought her home. Her mother set bread and salt on the table and told Egle to eat. And Egle ate because she was hungry and because grief makes the body stupid. When she had swallowed the last crumb, her skin tightened along her arms and her teeth grew thin and sharp, and she felt the scale pattern rise along her throat. She could not stay in the house of men. She climbed the great oak at the edge of the meadow and coiled around its highest fork and would not come down. Her children came up from the shore road calling for her. She told her sons to go back to the sea country and rule it. They said they would drown themselves first. She told them to become oaks then, and strong oaks on the hill where men could see them. They became oaks. She told her daughters to leave the water halls and walk inland. They wept and asked where they should live. She named the trees one by one: ash, birch, aspen, fir. Each daughter became the tree she was named for, rooted where she stood, and the wind through their leaves sounded like girls who had not yet learned the word for goodbye. Egle remained on the oak, serpent and woman together, looking toward the sea that would not take her back and the land that would not keep her. The brothers went away. The mother died. The father died. The homestead passed to other hands. Travelers on the road below the meadow learned not to sleep under that oak, because on certain nights they could see a long, pale shape coiled among the highest branches, still as bark, watching the waterline. In the Lithuanian telling, the story does not end when the trees are planted. It ends when a youngest brother's child, many years later, carries linen down to the shore on the same kind of morning Egle once did, and washes it in the cold Baltic water while the gulls argue. Some say the serpent on the oak uncoils then. Some say she has already become part of the wood. The tales disagree. The oak remains. This was Forgotten Fables. Follow the channel when you want the next story the loud world forgot.